Daylight, my MVVs, welcome. Hello, my lovely Daylight. How are you guys doing today? Happy midweek to all of you. Okay, if you have been seeing the trend on social media, Ooni of Ife, was in an event where the Alaafin of Oyo was also. And when Oni entered that event, people stood up to receive the Ooni of Ife, but Alaafin of Oyo was seated. Okay, now the young generation, the Gen Zs and a whole lot are very, on, will I say, upset, or they don't understand the situation. People are beginning to wonder why Alaafin of Oyo did not stand up to greet Ooni of Ife. And that video right there that is making the rounds on social media is, boozing social media up. Everyone has something to say. And so before we get very opinionated, I just want us to get to understand why that happened, okay? A lot of people are saying that it's a royalty clash and all of that. But today we are going to go inside Yoruba royalty to see why Alaafin refused to stand up to greet Ooni of Ife, and why, if Ooni of Ife is seated, Alaafin comes, Oni may not stand up. But we know Ooni of Ife, Adeyeye Ogunsi, he is a very, very humble man, and in his case, he may have stood up, okay, that's his decision, but Alaafin did not stand up. So let's look at what history is saying concerning this, okay? So we don't misunderstand the situation. We need to understand that Africans are very traditional people. They respect their culture so much. We need to bear that in mind as we jump into our conclusions. Okay, Daylight, today, let's have a deep and important conversation, not just about royalty and tradition, but about heritage, history, and identity. Because right now, we are seeing what's happening on social media. A lot of people are asking a bold question: why didn't the Alaafin of Oyo, all his representative, okay, his representative, they all stood up, but Alaafin of Oyo did not stand up. Now, before we start, forming opinions, let's go, way back, because let's go way back to understand what's happening now, okay? We need to return to the beginning, to the very root of Yoruba civilization. That's the beginning, okay? The beginning of the name, that is Oduduwa, the progenitor of, the Yoruba race. Now, Oduduwa, the revered progenitor of the Yoruba people, is believed to have ascended from the heavens or migrated from the east, okay? Depending on which oral tradition you follow. What matters is that he settled in Ile-Ife and from there began to establish what would later become the Yoruba kingdom. Oduduwa didn't just rule, he gave birth, spiritually and literally, to what we now call the Yoruba royal institutions, okay? Now, Daylight, he had several children and loyal followers who later became kings in various parts of Yoruba land. These sons and descendants were not ordinary rulers. They were given crowns, authority, and a mandate to expand the influence of their lineage. From this divine tree, the branches of Yoruba kingdom began to spread. Now, among these royal descendants, two of them, okay, stood out, as in they stand tall today in historical, cultural, and symbolic importance. The Ooni of Ife and the Alaafin of Oyo, these are the two that stand really, really tall. Let's begin with the Ooni of Ife. He sits on the throne of Ile-Ife, the spiritual headquarters of the Yoruba people. His lineage traces directly to Oduduwa himself. The Ooni is not just a king. He is seen as a priest king, okay? A custodian of Yoruba spirituality, tradition, and origin, okay? He oversees sacred rites, ancestral ceremonies, and is often referred to as the father of all Yoruba kings. That's not a title of domination. It's a title of origin, because if Ife is the source, it's where it all began, okay? Now, but here is the twist. Daylight, these are the things we need to understand. The Ooni's authority, while vast, is spiritual and symbolic. His throne is one of respect, ancestry, and sacred tradition, okay? Now, let's get back to Alaafin of Oyo. Alaafin of Oyo's throne, okay, it's also very important. Though he descended from Oduduwa as well, took a different form. Okay, the Oyo Empire rose centuries after Ife had already been established. Okay, you understand? Oyo Empire rose centuries, like long time before, after Ife had already been established. Okay, now the founder of Oyo is Oromiyan. Okay, Oromiyan was one of the most prominent sons or descendants of Oduduwa. Oromiyan was a warrior. He wasn't just a prince. He was an empire builder. In fact, Oromiyan didn't only rule in Oyo, he ruled in Benin as well. Okay, he was that powerful. Now, the Alaafin of Oyo, therefore, comes from a lineage of kings who were not just spiritual leaders, but military and political conquerors. Okay, the Oyo Empire became the most powerful Yoruba kingdom in West Africa. At its peak, it had a strong army, diplomatic envoys, complex administrative system, and political dominance over vast territory, including Dahomey and parts of, modern day Togo and Ghana. Okay, you see how big Oyo is. Okay, and this is where the idea of superiority becomes interesting, because while the Oni is seen as the origin, like the source of a river, the Alaafin is seen as the force of that river in motion. Do you understand? While the Ooni of Ife is seen as the origin, the source of the river, okay, the Alaafin is seen as the force of that river in motion. Okay, one is the root, the other is the reach. One is the crown of tradition, the other is the crown of empire. Do you understand? Now, during the golden era of the Oyo Empire, the Alaafin didn't just rule over Oyo. He had control in one form or another over other Yoruba kings. He appointed, Ara, Ona, okay? I don't know if you've heard of that. A powerful general responsible for expansion and protection. He was feared and respected across West Africa. His authority wasn't just symbolic, it was political and military, okay? So even though they only remained the spiritual father of all Yoruba kings, in terms of political power and influence, the Alaafin was not subservient. In fact, during certain eras, the Alaafin was more powerful than any other king, Yoruba king alive, and that shaped how the royal, relationship evolved. Okay, now let me paint a vivid picture for you. There was a time in Yoruba history when the Oni and the Alaafin did not speak to each other for decades. Not because of disrespect, but because their thrones were so powerful and independent that interactions were rare and deeply symbolic. There was even a time it was said that the Alaafin couldn't visit Ile-Ife and the Oni couldn't go to Oyo because their presence in each other's domain would be seen as a claim to superiority. That's how delicate the balance was. Okay, do you understand where I'm coming from, Dela, right? Now, fast forward to today, where we see both of these thrones functioning side by side in a more peaceful and collaborative way, yet the historical pride remains. They only represent the sacred history of Yoruba people. The Alaafin represent the bold empire that once stood against all odds, okay? So when people ask, why didn't the Alaafin or his representative, stand up to greet Oni? The answer isn't pride or rudeness. It's history. It's heritage. It's that mutual acknowledgement that both thrones are, sovereign in their own right. Okay? In the Yoruba traditional system, each Oba is supreme within his own domain. Okay? Sorry, I don't know if you're hearing that sound. It's actually raining, okay? Now, each Oba is supreme in their own domain, okay? The Oni doesn't bow to any king, and neither does Alaafin. They don't stand for each other, not because they lack respect, but because their thrones are seated in centuries of equality through different dimensions. It's not about ego, it's not about historical context, okay? And we must also remember the modern world often misinterpret traditional codes. In the West, you stand to show respect in Yoruba culture, you respect your elders, your pair, and your lineage, but you also stand firm in your own authority. A king doesn't rise because another king enters. He honors that king with what? With prayers, with courtesies, but not necessarily with a gesture that implies subordination. Do you understand? Dela writes, this is why we must learn before we judge. What happened in Oyo is not a breach of protocol. It is a reenactment of deep ancient balance. The Ooni of Ife came in all his regal splendor and was respected, but the Alaafin's throne, stood its ground, not in, disrespect, but in dignity. So many people are, may continue to ask these questions, especially the Gen Z generation. And this is the reason why, they keep saying that history should be taught in school so that people or children or the Gen Zs, they begin to understand some of our history, our tradition, and all of that. Because if this information was made available to young people out there, you won't have this uproar that is going on social media. Why didn't the Alaafin stand? Why didn't the Alaafin stand? There is a reason to why Alaafin did not stand, okay? I don't know if I've been able to explain anything or if this video is making any sense to you guys, but it's not out of disrespect. It's out of, the authority that they also possess, okay? Dela writes, I'm going to bring you people more updates. I appreciate and love you guys so much. Thank you.